Oh, so we're so thrilled to bring this next guest to the Rail Talk studio. Always an interesting guy, always has a lot of knowledge and insight on all avenues of the industry. Oh, and by the way, he's a very successful trainer who's just recently won his 2000th race. Kenny McPeek, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We're so thrilled to have you. I wanted to start with that. You know, you recently picked up your 2000th win, and I saw an interesting story in the racing forum where you talked about how this was like an accidental career for you. Like you didn't initially set out to be a horse trainer. Can you just, I don't know, because I'm not sure if our audience has read that story. Can you just talk about what you initially wanted to do and then how you ended up following this path?
Well, there's a long version and a short version, I suppose. I've been around the thoroughbred industry since I was a boy. My dad bought into a horse when I was young, but my grandfather would take me to Keeneland when I was in first, second grade. I started going to Keeneland. Then I learned how to read pedigree when I was probably 10 or 11. And like I said, my dad went in a few partnerships and then got my first job. Once I got my driver's license, I got a job on a horse farm. And I did my first horse deal when I was 19. I was a sophomore in college, and we flipped some brood mares. Made about $75,000 in 2 weeks. So it's actually a really funny story, but it'll take up half your show. And then my mother was the taskmaster.
Okay.
You are going to college, and you will graduate. And it was one of those things like, son, over my dead body, you are going to college, and you will graduate. Which I did. I pushed through school real fast. I actually got in and out in 3.5 years. And then the day after my last class, I went to work on the racetrack and got a hot walking job the next morning. And so tinkered around on the racetrack for probably a month and a half, 2 months. Wasn't making enough money to make ends meet. For that matter, my mother was pretty put out that I would, get a degree in accounting and finance and go to work on the racetrack. But anyway, so I kind of migrated back into trying to utilize my degree. I had gotten job offers on Wall Street. I'd actually lived in New York or Manhattan for a summer in '83 and spent a lot of time working, interviewing, and going to the races. So that was an interesting summer. But after I tried to use my degree, there weren't any jobs then. I mean, it was 18% interest rates back in the 80s. And it was, and I probably didn't have like what I would call a classic. I was a good student, but I wasn't a great student. And so the racetrack kind of always pulled me in. But one day, my father was a home builder and he had 18% interest rates, pretty hard to sell a house. And he was having some serious financial problems and asked me to come help take care of some horses he had 4 horses. Both his trainers had fired him because they couldn't pay him. And he said, can you help me out for a couple of weeks till I can figure out what to do with these horses? And I said, well, I'd actually found a job and I was making decent money. And so I'd come early in the morning and help him. We worked together. I'd clean the stall. He'd walk. We had to borrow forks, rakes. We didn't have anything in the first few days. Then subsequently, eventually we had to borrow saddles to get them on because the horses were going stir crazy walking every day. So I started sending them to the track. And then a couple months go by. Now the old man quit showing up and it's me, myself. He can't pay me. And so the deal was pretty simple. Win or you don't get paid. And so there was a trainer next to us who we ran the horses in his name a couple of races. And then my dad says he was going to go get his trainer's license. I said, okay, great. So the morning of the trainer's test, he decides that he doesn't think he's going to pass because I'm the one that's been spending all the time in the barn. And I said, well, if you're not going to go, I'm going to go. So I went down to the Kentucky Racing Commission and told them it was a misspelling. It was supposed to be Ken, not Ron. And took the test and won a race within a month. And the feeling of the rush of winning a race is just so amazing. It was a maiden 10 claimer at River Downs. I mean, the purse was like $4,100, but I was immediately hooked. And then I won, I think 10 out of my first 50 starters. and people started calling me saying, "Hey, will you take a couple for me?" And I had average horses that were mostly rejects, and I was learning on the go, pretty much self-taught. I would ask questions of trainers that I respected, and have a lot of people that I can say contributed to my knowledge. But I never had what I'd call a cookie cutter way of doing things. It was always an open mind. And then I started getting a little bit better horses. And then I convinced a guy to let me go buy them, which that was, I bought a nice mare named Warside who won stakes up in Monmouth and Keeneland. And she was the first crop of Lord of War. So anyway, here I am. I'm still doing it 2,000 wins later.
That's an amazing story. And Kenny, one of the things that I've always been super impressed by you is that when you go to sales, you mentioned going to sales and buying horses. When you go to sales, you're not the one who's signing the ticket for the most expensive horses that are sold. You're winning grade 1 races with horses that are modestly priced. Without giving away the secret sauce, what goes into your thought process when you go to a sale? Because it seems like time and time again, you're buying horses for 50, 60, 70,000 and they're showing up in grade 1 races.
Well, like the stock market, you buy when the stock's down, not when it's up. And so I don't get enamored with, sires and mares that have produced multiple stakes winners. I get enamored with the physical. So when Roy Monroe was the first client that ever gave me a budget to go to an auction, and we talked about it, and he says, "Well, I'm going to give you $6,000. That was the budget, $6,000. And so it was July or August. And I said, well, there's no sense in going to Keeneland July, and there's no sense in going to Phasig July, and there's no sense in going to Keeneland September. We're going to wait for Phasig October, and we're going to pluck something out of there. And I think, maybe I can get something for $6,000. I don't know. So the process of the sale is what I call a squeeze them. I still do it the same way as I did when I bought for Roy. And the math was pretty simple. I looked at every single horse myself. I love looking at horses. So then what I do is that I squeeze the package down I start making short lists, and then I get them down and down and down. And then I decide, where's the value? Right. Which is the best looking horse that I've seen that's going to be modestly priced. And so Roy, I think we had 10 horses on the final list. 2 of them, 8 of them, the stud fee was more than the $6,000. And then there were 2 horses on the list, and I called it down to these 2 fillies. The first one went for $12,000, and we got outbid. And the second one brought $8,500. And that was the horse that kind of kicked me off my first Keeneland Stakes win. And so, and then Roy, a couple years later, gave me a bigger budget, and I bought him Tahana Run with a $20,000 budget. Right. And then Tahana Run, of course, Derby, second in the Derby. And I don't do it any different today than when I started. And I still have that base of clients that if I go in and I see a horse that I think's on the physical, looks like a runner, then I grab it, and we'll worry about who owns it later. Some cases, like in Curlin's case, I bought him on spec. I offered that horse to 6 people, and they turned him down until finally somebody took him, and they tried to give him back because they didn't like his ankle, because he had an unusual vet exam when he was a yearling. But that's just one of many examples. And I bought a horse for $25 out of the OBS sale, a Minnesota bred. And you know what? She looked like Swiss Skydiver when she walked up and back. I mean, same package, same figure. If she's half as good, I'm all right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and even Swiss Skydiver was a $35,000.
Yeah, 35.
Yeah.
But I believe that you buy when the market's down. You buy when stallions or I guess you could say when people are down on a stallion. That's usually when I'm looking hardest. When a mare's thrown 7 or 8 foals and she hadn't had a good horse yet, and she's in book 5, that doesn't mean she can't throw a grade 1 winner. And so, and then beyond that, I don't get a huge budget. I've had some people that have a lot of money, but I don't typically, throw it at it.
Right.
The Greens haven't called me yet. The Greens haven't called me
Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. It's coming. It's coming, though, boss.
I think if you sign up for the Green Group's tax preparation, that'll give you the in on that.
One last thing. I'm a student of stakes races. I love looking at the horses in the paddock for the stakes. I think that you see common denominators. A good horse looks like has a certain type. And I love looking at whether it's a turf race or a sprint race or, dirt long, whatever it might be. I'm always looking at every horse and who they buy and who they out of and how are they made. And I like doing that math.
One horse that you didn't buy at auction, it was homebred, but also has a pretty modest pedigree, being Golden Sense out of a Colonel John mare, is Mystic Dan. And he's your top Derby contender at the moment. I thought his race in the Southwest was crazy impressive. Like you hardly ever see horses skip over a wet track like that. He was just zooming down the stretch. Do you think it was something that he just happened to like the slop a lot better than the other horses, or was he sitting on a breakout race and that just happened to be a sloppy track that day? Like what was your take on him having that big step forward?
No, sloppy doesn't have anything to do with it. I mean, he's just fast. I bought his mother for that group for $50,000. And then she ran out about 300 the hard way. It wasn't a stakes filly, but solid. And then I did the mating. And I told him, I said, you need to breed this mare to something a little faster than her. And so we did the mating and we foaled him at Magdalena in Lexington. So that's a bit of a kick. I mean, to put the thing together and then, look, I mean, this horse has got a serious chance to really do some amazing stuff.
And what's the deal with him? Like I've seen he's worked out a bunch of times since the Southwest. What's the plan to get him to the Derby? Well,
we wanted to keep him fresh for the spring. I mean, we've got we need to run well in the Arkansas Derby. The ownership group is all from Hot Springs and Arkansas area, so that was a no-brainer. And we didn't want to run back quickly in the Rebel. That was back in 3 weeks, and he is a smaller type horse. And the one time that I ran him back quick, kind of backfired on me. So we decided not to dance too many dances with him, and we just basically been keeping a fresh horse for the next go round. And like I said, skipping the Rebel was a pretty easy decision, but then that mean we had 7 weeks in between races after that. But we're excited. I mean, he's locked and loaded. He threw a 59 and change breeze yesterday or day before yesterday, and then he's got one little maintenance breeze, and we'll send him up to Oakland.
Now, is that one of the reasons why Common Defense is running at the fairgrounds? Is because you didn't want to run them against each other, or was it the extra distance that the Louisiana Derby offers, and you thought that was going to be better for Common Defense?
Extra distance. I think Common Defense is begging for all the ground in the world. I mean, and certainly didn't want to run them against each other. But he will run. He's a run all day type. And he's tactical. He can lay right off the pace if necessary. So that horse we're very excited about too. And he's a $9,000 RNA. I mean, he's
that's amazing.
You don't know where they're coming from,
and it looks like you don't know where they're coming from. And that was a homebred, right? Of Tony's.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, big, pretty horse. Not the most correct horse ever. He's a little bit left and right, up and down. I mean, he's his front end, but he's got a beautiful shoulder, hip, great mind on him, and he very well could punch a big ticket in that race this weekend.
No doubt. Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit because you're always an outspoken guy with a lot of really smart, reasoned opinions, I think, on the industry issues. I'm sure you read the Rusty Arnold letter about HISA recently, basically saying that, HISA is being a little too heavy-handed in terms of potential contamination and not really taking the horseman's experience and advice into account, despite there being a horseman's advisory group as part of the HISA protocol. What's your feeling? Like, we're almost a year into this thing now. I guess about 9 months into the medication program, at least. Where are you at? Do you feel like you have been heard as a horseman, or do you think that you guys need to be more involved?
Well, I think we definitely need to be more involved. I think Rusty's spot on. I mean, Rusty doesn't come out and say a whole lot typically. He usually keeps it close to the vest, but he's obviously upset about the way he was treated there. And I agree with him. I mean, I don't And I have told executives with HISA, it's real simple for me. Get these rules so they're aligned everywhere. I mean, the problem, whether it's an entry rule or a shoeing rule or, medication rules, and there's still a lot of disconnect. Like, for example, Equibase doesn't communicate with Encompass. It doesn't communicate with the computers at racetracks. So if you make an entry and you had another track that the entries might have changed or the ownership may have changed, that needs to be in one bucket. That needs to be streamlined. That's just one silly one. But I could give you a list of them. And unfortunately, they're not allowing guys like myself or Rusty or others to get really, actually, I think I saw recently they posted that you could apply to be on some sort of horseman committee. Right. And I probably should do that. Like, I don't have anything else to do right now. I've got so much spare time, but anyway, they do need somebody that's well knowledgeable about all the little idiosyncrasies we deal with. And I think there's still a lot of work to do, a lot. And I think HISA's still got their work cut out for them. And, whether they take Horseman's advice, well, I think they are, and they will. I don't think they're completely opposed to our opinions, but I do think that when they first set it up, they have people on the committee that know absolutely nothing. That's scary.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Those people are calling me, going, "What do I do, Kenny? How do I answer this?" And I've got one guy. I'll leave his name out of it, but he brings me all the time saying, "I don't know how to answer this. What should we do?" Well,
right. Well, then you know who should be on the board. But you're right. The application period is open now, and I'm sure that they would love to have somebody with your insight and acumen and just common sense to be on the advisory board, because that's really what they're looking to do. Is my understanding is they're trying to get smart people together, owners, trainers, jockeys, breeders alike, gamblers, to try to get everyone's insight on what's going on. I'm sure you'd be a welcome addition for that. One of the other topics that we talk a lot about is, the good and bad of a super trainer. And I think it could be argued that you could be considered in that list, or maybe just a notch below, as it were, as far as the number of horses that you have. What's your feeling on super trainers? Should there be a limit as far as the number of horses that a trainer gets, or is that just nonsense and we have to let the system work itself out?
Well, I started as a small trainer. Nobody gave me anything, and now I have just a great base of clients. And does that make me a super trainer? I don't know. I don't know that term. I work every day to help a lot of people make decisions, whether it's buying decisions, racing decisions, breeding decisions. Do you limit somebody like myself to be able to help more people? I tend to try to, what I'd call cull from the bottom. If a horse doesn't have a lot of talent or doesn't fit our program, then I'm in a fortunate position to be able to say, hey, this one's not going to work for us, or we work to sell that horse. But I don't see how you can stop somebody from doing business. Sometimes it's embarrassing when you got so many good horses. Sometimes I wonder, God, how did I get so many? I have like 29 stake horses in the barn right now. It's like, but they're horses that I either bought or, we've helped develop. We've obviously developed, and we've got a great team of guys. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming having so many. Sometimes I wish I only had 40. But then there are people who are constantly calling saying, hey, will you help me? Will you help me? They've got some wonderful people, whether they're high-end clients or they're middle or lower-end clients. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, I think that you have done it the right way and have built it a very natural way. I just think sometimes it becomes a self-perpetuating thing at the very highest levels, where people only see certain faces in the winner's circle for the big races. They assume I got to go to those trainers if I'm going to win any big races. And that's not how it is. I saw you give an interview recently about the accessibility of racing data, racing video, racing replays. You have your own company, Horse Races Now, that does streaming and betting. And can you just tell us a little bit about that and what kind of market inefficiencies you're attempting to address with that app?
Well, we don't do betting, and we don't have any streaming. We can't afford the streaming, and the betting they won't allow us to do. Although we did,
except for that, I got it right.
Yeah, and we so let me tell you how this evolved. So I have a friend of mine, and he is what I would call a classic average Joe Bill Bob. He's just a country boy and simple guy, and he comes to me and he says, "Man, I wish I knew when your horses were running. I never know when your horses are running." And so we were having a cold beer one night watching television, and we were watching a show came on called Planet of the Apps. And this is back in 2010. And at the time, and they did this, it was on a news channel, and they did this an analysis of how that smartphones were going to take over the market. And that at the time, there was only 7% of Americans had smartphones. And that within the next 2 years, it was going to be 35%, but within 5 to 7 years, it would be 100%. So people were going to need apps. And I didn't know what an app was. I thought, well, that's interesting. So I purchased an iPhone, and one of the first apps I did was the ESPN app. So the ESPN app has notifications for your favorite teams. It has start of the game, halftime, significant plays, whatever, and then obviously the final. And so you just turn on the alerts on the ESPN app. But I'm scrolling through the ESPN app, and I'm going through sports. And all the sports that are listed in the app, in the ESPN app, and horse racing's not in there. And I'm like, well, that's BS. We don't have any presence in the sports app. Okay. So I called around and I asked some important people in the business, is anybody making an app for horse racing? I had one of them said, Kenny, people don't want apps. I said, I think they're going to want apps. I mean, this guy was probably one of the best paid executives in horse racing. And he laughed at me. I said, well, look, I think people are going to want to have apps, and I think we need a horse racing app. And I asked Churchill, and I asked Stronach Group, and I asked like all these entities. Nobody was making a horse racing app. So I did a little research, and who can help me build this? Because I don't care. I guess a no fear attitude. I believe anything you decide to do in life, you can do. You just have to work your tail off at it. You have to stay focused, and it will come to you. There's a great book called Magic of Believing. Well, yep. So I put a team together to build it, and it wasn't easy. It was hard. And today, that thing's had over 1 million downloads in 217 countries. And so, and I've lost a fortune on it. It's the worst investment. I have lost over $5 million on that thing. Fortunately, my day job helps pay for things. But I have an email database of over 600,000 people that I own. And so what do we do with it? I believe that the sport needs to open the video. I believe we need to make it so easy for fans to watch that they can't stand it. At one point in time, we had 129 racetracks that had video on it. The fans loved it. I mean, we were streaming probably too much because the company that was sourcing us the streaming was saying, you realize more people are watching horse racing on, we call it Horses Now. We've shortened the name, than any entity in the world. I said, isn't that good? And they're like, no, we're going to readdress, all your streaming. To stay in business, we'd love to be able to allow that database to take wagers. They're hungry to. We do surveys that say that 75% of our users have an ADW account. We would like to be able to take bets, but we can't get in the market because we don't have we're not a brick and mortar. And So there's problematic, and then we've gone to ads, but it's kind of a passion project for me, in that if I shut it down, and I've contemplated it, there would be a lot of people that would be very disappointed, because there are a lot of people, I think, that utilize it.
So when your career is done and you're sitting back on the porch with a cold one, are you going to want to know that you had a Derby winner, that you were in the Hall of Fame, or that you were able to successfully sell the app to ESPN?
I don't think about any of that. Just keep getting up and working. I don't know when I would stop. I mean, I've said I was going to stop at 70, 72. I'm 61. I know I look 40. I mean, but
yeah, well, no question. Our audience wants to know if you're on a dating app. That's really what they want to know.
No. Happy wife, happy life.
I know.
I have the most wonderful wife ever. But I don't know. I mean, Derby winner would be wonderful, but I think a lot of stuff's got to fall in place. Hall of Fame be wonderful, but that's out of my control. I don't worry about stuff out of my control. The app, if I turn off all the coding, it'll still make about $7,000 or $8,000 a month. But writing code is another deal.
Right.
So I don't know. We're just putting one foot in front of the other every day, and don't really worry about what I've got to deal with. And certainly, family's a priority. I got a beautiful daughter, 2 beautiful daughters, and good setup. Between where we go Saratoga in the summer. We're Keeneland and Churchill spring and fall, and right now I'm in New Orleans. So who's got it better than us? Nobody.
That's right.
That's for damn sure. That house is beautiful, by
Thanks.
the way.
Yeah.
Right there on Bourbon Street. That's awesome. John, you got one more?
So Kenny, I just want to reel us back into a specific race. Let's talk about the Oaks, the Fairground Oaks that you have going on this weekend with VVS Dream and Midsummer March. They were both yearling purchases that you secured for more money than what you usually spend on average. But now they're both showing up, and they're in the 1 and 2 path of the Fairground Oaks. Can you give us an idea of, when you handicap that race, what you're thinking about your chances?
Well, both fillies are nice fillies. Midsummer March has got a bit to prove, and she's doing so well, we decided to throw her into the deep end. Vivi's Dream showed amazing talent as a 2-year-old, but she got sick on me at Saratoga last summer, and then we got her through that, and she managed to win the Pocahontas in the fall, but second in the Alcibiades, but she's faltered a little bit since then. She's hooked 2 muddy racetracks, and she didn't run a step over either one of them. But she's still working. She'll work bullets, and she's very, very talented. But she's certainly, deserves to be in there as a 2-time stakes winner, graded winner. And then Midsummer March, we're going to learn about. I've been second in the Kentucky Oaks 3 times. So that's been a bit frustrating, but we've got some other ones that are going to run in the Fantasy, and then I've got 1 or 2 going to run in the Bourbonette at Turfway, and I've got one for the Ashland as well. So we've got good group of fillies as well as colts.
Loaded for bear for all the big races, as we expect you to be. Kenny, thanks so much for the time, man. Keep up the great work. And I just looked up the horses now. You got over 500,000 downloads on Google Play. So you're doing something right. Maybe there's a little cross promotion to be had here. Kenny, appreciate the time, brother. Continued success.
Probably double that on iPhone. I mean, people like it. I mean, it's a useful product. I hope people that are listening enjoy it and try it. And we're trying to get it so it's on financial footing, although right now it's not, but we're keeping at it.
Yep. Well, when you look up entrepreneur in the dictionary, your face is right there between the horses and the apps and the real estate, and God, it's incredible.
Thanks.
Very, very impressive, Kenny. Thanks for the time, man.
Anytime.